classification, it's marked by lower elevated symptoms of hypomania alternating with severe depression. Whereas cyclophymatic disorder is marked by hypomania with less elevated forms of depression that are not as long-lasting or as elevated as a full episode.
Mixed features is when a victim of bipolar disorder suffers from opposite mood polarities during an episode of maybe manic or depressive disorder of episode. And rapid cycling is when a victim suffers from several episodes, 4 or more in a year, whether it be manic or depression.
Okay, so they don't know the exact factor that creates bipolar disorder, but there are many that are being considered. One of those is genetic. They believe that if your parents are diagnosed with bipolar disorder, the child will be as well. Another is the neurochemical factor. When you're depressed, you are lacking serotonin, that's kind of your happy hormone. Or when you're going through a manic episode, you have excess dopamine and excess norepinephrine. Then there's also an environmental factor that's being considered. If you grew up, say, in an abusive household or you went through a traumatic experience in your life, they believe that this could trigger bipolar disorder. Then there's a biological factor. There have been studies done on brain size where people that are diagnosed with bipolar disorder, their prefrontal cortex is actually smaller than those that are undiagnosed. And the prefrontal cortex, that's your decision-making center. But, as I said before, the cause is still unknown.
So the purpose, what is our purpose of doing this experiment was to basically support that there is a chemical factor that ties into bipolar depression or disorder. We compared shrimp, we introduced them to dopamine, and we gave 4 participants B6 vitamins, and we wanted to see if they had any relation.
The reason we gave humans B6 vitamins is because it's toxic to actually give them actual dopamine. But B6 vitamins, they actually increase their natural dopamine production. So our hypothesis. Because we had 2 different experiments, we also have 2 different hypotheses. One of them is if we introduce dopamine to a group of shrimp, a group of goldfish, and a group of humans, or a group of goldfish, and a group of shrimp, they will begin to display symptoms seen in the bipolar manic episode.
For the human experiment, our hypothesis was if we give 4 humans B6 vitamins, they will feel signs before it and increase energy. So for the human experiment, at approximately 9:15 every morning per week, we gave them 300 milligrams or 3 capsules of vitamin B6, which is the supplement that increases dopamine. And the first day of the week, we gave them a preliminary survey so we could compare their first answers to their future answers and see if there was any difference.
And then we have our shrimp. We were originally going to use brine shrimp, but they never hatched due to the weather inside Hoover Hall. So we went with red cherry shrimp. We have our experimental group, that's the group in the brown containers, and then our control group, which is in the clear container. What we did was, for every 100 milliliters of water, we added 10 milliliters of dopamine. That was suggested to us by our mentor, Ms. Ellie. And what we saw was a lot of difference almost immediately after we added the dopamine solution. They began to rapidly swim around the beakers, and as you can see in this picture, they started floating upside down at the top, whereas the control group stayed at the bottom throughout the entire experiment. Unfortunately, we were going to make continuous observations, but they didn't make it throughout the night. They only lasted for the day from today.
Like Shelly said, we were going to do brown shrimp, but they did not hatch, so we went with goldfish. As you can see, in the dopamine water, in both of them, we did 400 milliliters of water. And the dopamine, we put 400 milliliters of dopamine in there. And when we did put the dopamine in there, they reacted quickly, and he started spinning around in his,
We actually added 40 milliliters. And these are our graphs for our surveys. What we did was we went from a -3 to +3 scale. How we did that was we took all their answers and we made a generic scale beforehand. So say the question was, how do you usually feel? If they answered depressed, that would be a -3. Or if they said they normally feel very happy, very energetic, we'd give that a +3. So say someone answered, I feel sad. They would get, I would consider that a -2, but maybe Skylar would consider that a -1. So we probably got these 3 points for the preliminary, the interim survey, and then the post-survey. And as you can see throughout the graphs, there's a lot of sporadic changes. There isn't a consistent change, but that's because bipolar disorder affects everybody differently. That's why we believe we do see consistent changes. But there are changes. You see, participant 2, their social life decreased a lot. At the beginning, they were at a +2, and towards the end, they were already down to like -2.7. Whereas appetite didn't change throughout most of it, but that's because B6 initial purpose is metabolism support, so that's why we didn't see much change in appetite, which we expected. But their sleeping patterns did change a lot. You can see there's major changes. That's because one of the symptoms for a manic episode is restlessness and having trouble sleeping. So for our results, the red-shirted shrimp became hyperactive until the experimental group died. Hyperactive, we classified that as the rapid swimming around the beaker and the floating upside down.
The goldfish had the same. They had hyperactive, and when we put the dopamine in, like I said, his gills like flared up, and we thought that it was because he wanted fresh water.
And the participants displayed sporadic changes in behavior and mood, as we said before, bipolar disorder affected them differently. So when the interim and post-survey questions and answers changed according to the preliminary and the spread, we classified that as a change in those changes were spread.
Real-world applications. There's many applications that this experiment could support. That was the theory of a neurochemical factor. And then soda consumption is smoking. When you're drinking soda or eating fatty foods or smoking cigarettes, this actually increases the dopamine production in your body. And then there's also just mental disorder awareness. I bet a lot of you in here didn't know that there were actually 5 types of bipolar disorder. So we wanted to better inform the public.
So future studies to make this study even better is if you gave mice dopamine, then you would have more background, because we tested on mice so much, we already know so much about them, we could better observe their reactions. Or having a larger population of goldfish or red cherry shrimp would also help, because you would watch a multitude of them instead of just one. However, the limitations of our experiment were our supplies came in, so we couldn't test the participants as long as we wanted to. We only had a week. This is also a future study, studying participants longer with these 6 vitamins for these future studies. However, many people might think that our results are inconclusive because they're not uniform or because of the application limitations that we had. However, bipolar disorder is affected everyone uniquely, so it is only to be expected that we can't have uniform results. And there's a slight bias because this is a busy camp that we go to, and we gave them a week. The trial was a week for each participant. So depending on what they were doing with their normal life, or maybe it was before 4th of July or after midterm, then that might have biased their answers. And in conclusion, bipolar disorder affects millions, and this experiment is aimed toward supporting the theory that chemical imbalance is the primary factor in bipolar disorder. And once we come to that conclusion that chemical imbalance is a primary factor, that would make better representation and better treatment options for the millions of people that are affected by bipolar disorder.
So we'd like to thank Ms. Jennifer Ellie for helping us with the project on the shrimp and the goldfish. We'd also like to thank Ms. Gossage for being another one of our mentors.
We would like to thank Ms. Morgan and Mr. Oswald for everything, for example, materials.
And of course, we would like to thank our participants and the WSC Biology Lab for being able, for letting us use the goldfish and their facility.
I have a question, I guess more of a comment. So in your literature, you're discussing the different types of things that affect bipolar. You can go to your slide, there's genetic, environmental, and so forth. There's actually genes that are predictors towards bipolar. You can actually take a genetic test and determine if someone is in line with bipolar. There is proof now that bipolar based on genetic conditions. So I think all those things point to it, right? We don't know
but there's also been studies done with children, with parents with twins, where one twin will have the disorder, but the other one won't. So we want to prove that there's other factors that can be taken into account for.
Right, so it's kind of a combination, not, thank you.
What was your, when it came to your human testing, what was your control for that? Because you said you had, I mean, did you give them tests like a week before to see what that was?
We had the preliminary survey, that was before they ever started taking the
But that was
biopsies.
on one day beforehand.
Yes.
So you only tested that one day before they ever started taking it, and then you just proceed. Did you have anybody that you tested, that you surveyed that did not take the pills?
No. We figured, we were just comparing to themselves. We weren't comparing one person to another person.
I understand, but I mean, as far as just consistency of, because like you said, one of your biases that's a problem is the fact that you're taking teenagers that are in a stressful situation anyhow, because you guys are in this camp, which is fun, but a lot of work. So, but no, I was just wondering if you had any other control factors outside of that. Okay, thank you.
What was your reasoning behind using shrimp as one of your participants?
Well, we wanted to use brine shrimp originally, and they come in the thousands, so we could watch the multitude of brine shrimp move and be affected. We went to red cherry shrimp because they're bigger, and we used fewer than thousands, obviously, there's a certain period. But we could still have multiple subjects to watch, and because they were bigger, we could actually see that their heart was beating faster, and we think that they died because of a heart attack because the adrenaline pumping through their veins because they're bigger.
It's also just availability. There's ethics that go into feeding larger animals such as rats. That's why using brine shrimp, because they're vertebrates, we don't have to go through immunophobia and purpose. Jacob?
So the reason why you're saying that shrimp dies because of irregular heartbeat
That's just a guess. We don't know.
is because the side effects of dopamine is it's a high potency, so it lowers the blood pressure.
Right.
So that's possible cause also.
It could be. Because we weren't there when they died overnight. We can't find it conclusive. Ms. Gossage.
I have two questions, and they're related. My first question is, were you able to observe any case studies? Were you able to read about individuals showing episodes of mania, episodes of depression, to be able to gauge, looking at the other in your actual study?
I've experienced it. I've seen people with bipolar disorder, so I've seen the stages. And you also showed us the video of someone going through a manic episode.
And then the second question is, and again, it's in relation, and so what generated that interest in bipolar disorder, or I guess mental disorders overall?
Well, me and Skylar both want to go into neuroscience when we get older, so we already planned from the beginning we wanted to do a neuroscience project. And we both also have interest in mental disorders. So we chose one that people have heard of, but don't necessarily know a lot about. There are more women diagnosed with bipolar disorder than men. 2 females and 2 males. Yeah.
I have a question about the data, particularly the sleeping patterns. How did you guys measure their sleeping pattern on that intermediate cognitive scale?
How easily they fell asleep, how easily they woke up in the mornings, how long it took them to fall asleep.
Do you think that the sporadic data could have been due to other factors?
Yeah, we included that in our discussion because this is a stressful program.
For your data, for all of the measures, were they all subjective measures? Like, for example, if they kind of measured themselves, how well they fell asleep?
It had to be their own opinions, but we tried to quantify it as best we could on how many of your positive things.
I have kind of a follow-up question when Nikki asked, so why use of gender does play a difference in bipolar diagnosis or bipolar symptoms?
There's just